Hi, I'm ANZE, and if you're watching this, that means my new remix of Getting Rid of You by Gideon is out. This is how I made it. So, here's the project file in all its glory. There's the mixer. As you can see, I am the most organized FL Studio user on the planet. Everything's color-coded, and it's beautiful. So to start off, I want to talk about the vocals, because I honestly think it's the coolest part about this whole thing. If we go down here, all of the magenta tracks are vocals, and obviously this came from the original song Getting Rid of You by Gideon, but I did some pretty cool stuff to it.
Didn't think I'd see you talking.
So this is the main lead
It's been
vocal.
a few months without clearing the air.
But also what's going on behind it is I have these delay vocals, which is just kind of the same thing, but with some effects on it and a little bit farther back. I think it's also formatted downwards? What is going on there? Delay vocals, yeah. Little altar boy brought the formant down, so it's a little more like that, you know? One element you hear throughout the track is this sort of fading in vocal. And that is a classic technique. Right before the drop, it actually gets some distortion to it to amp the energy up. But it's the first syllable of the chorus, the I lost when I found you. The I lost when I found you, that first syllable, you take the vocal, reverse it, put reverb on the end, render out the reverb, and then reverse that, and you get this.
And go home with what you...
Sure, everyone knows that already, but for those who don't, it's pretty cool. Now, the vocals don't actually really get interesting until the build-up, the sort of pre-chorus here, and that's because we have a whole bunch of stuff going on. So here's our lead vocal.
Cause I know he feels alone at night, and I know you come around, and I know I like to think too much, but I know what's going down, and I'd rather be blind than stare into red warning lights with my feet off the ground. So leave me in the corner lost and go home with what you...
So you'll notice right here, I actually automated the reverb out, and it sort of fades back in. I think it's just makes a pretty interesting transition because it's got a really long tail in the reverb, and then coming out of the verse into the buildup, you get this sort of like rather than the sections bleeding into each other, it's like more of an impact to the transition because it's like, you know, reverb tail just and it cuts off and then comes back in.
Yeah. Cause I know he feels alone at night, and I know you come around.
Really a subtle detail, but I think you can feel it, really. And obviously, that's not even the most interesting thing going on in this pre-chorus, because we've got a couple more layers here. I actually didn't use the original background vocal here. I brought it in for the second pre-chorus over here, just to get a little differentiation. But what we do have is a vocoded layer. So we've got just a super saw here, doing some chord stacks, and we're running essentially a copy of the vocal track through a vocoder, and then some more vocal processing. It's really quiet and pretty subtle. You can sort of barely hear it in the actual full mix, but it does a lot for just adding sort of width and energy to the vocal.
Cause I know he feels alone at night, and I know you come around, and I know I like to think too much, but I know what's going down.
And then the scary vocal. This is so cool. So there's this plugin, Humanoid by Baby Audio. It's kind of new. I saw a bunch of ads all over the place for it. Finally decided to try it out. It's awesome, guys. Buy Humanoid. It's like $100 or something, but it's really good. So basically, I'm running another copy of the vocal track through Humanoid, and it's being tracked to this MIDI, which is sort of doing like an octave down harmony to the main vocal. And it's also sort of being morphed into like, well, this weird waveform. I don't really know how Humanoid works. It's some crazy stuff, but it sounds awesome.
I know he feels alone at night, and I know you come around, and I know I like to think too much, but I know what's going down, and I'd rather be blind than stare into red warning lights with my feet off the ground. So leave me in the corner lost and go home with what you...
And then that super like angry vocal that you're hearing right before the drop is just a ton of the little altar boy drive knob being automated in, and a lot of gain on that section of the track. And
No one
on its
feels
own, it's
alone
not
at
that much, but when you layer it with the vocoder and the original vocal, it's so cool.
No one feels alone at night, and I know you come around. And I know I like to think too much, but I know what's going down. And I'd rather be blind than staring to red warning lights with my feet off the ground. So leave me in the corner lights and go home with what you
And honestly, just that little bit right there before the drop,
and go home with what you
that's probably my favorite part of the whole song. It's just so cool. As for everything else going on in the verse and the build-up, the intro is just, where is it? It's gonna be up here. The intro, this is the original bass stem from the original song. Some automation going on. We've got the background vocals.
getting rid of you. I just can't get around.
We've got this little vocal pluck thing that you can hear throughout the whole track. It's this it's a sample I got from Splice. That's what it sounds like originally. And I did some stuff to it. It sounds like this. And that's just sort of, you can see it just omnipresent throughout the whole track. I love just adding little vocal stabs. I love just tiny ones with reverb, lots of reverb for, you know, ambiance. So there's that, and then also this sort of like ambient loop from Splice. It's a very subtle background layer, but what it does very importantly is I have this little pitch bend automation on it that just makes it just a tiny bit spooky, you know? And that's kind of what this track is kind of be. Spooky. For the verse, not really a whole lot going on here. It's pretty minimalist. We've got just a little pad, a Reese, the drums is just the original hi-hat stem, little kick, snare, shaker, some hats. Very basic stuff. And then, of course, the ambience loop, cymbal crash for the transition. And then we get into the build-up. Let's see, where do we start with this? We keep the pad, but we go from a Reese bass to basically a copy of it with just a different envelope. It's got a little bit of rhythm to it. And then we also add this, I added another layer on top of it, just some mid bass. And then, you know, the vocals, obviously. And we've got the vocal pluck. It's got this shaper box on it, doing this weird little LFO that's panning it left and right. And then also got more automation on top of it that's panning it more. And you end up with this super wide sound that you can see just going all over the place, and it adds a lot of space. And I found just taking sounds like that, just like short little stabs and just putting it over and over, it also adds a lot of tension, because you take this build up, remove that.
No, it feels alone at night, and I know you come around.
And it's like, yeah, it's dark, but there's not as much drama to it, whereas this little pluck.
No, it feels alone at night, and I know you come around. And I know I like to think too much.
It's subtle. It's very far back in the mix, but it just sort of adds like a metronome. That's just like da 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 da. It makes you feel the build up more. For the drums, there's a tom here that you might not even notice, but
No, it feels
da da. Just doing a little cinematic build up stuff, and then all these drums come in. They're being low passed and just sort of. coming in, introducing the drum and bass groove before we get into the drop. And then lastly, there's just, a whole lot of just transition sound effects, risers. Gideon told me I should add panning to my riser, so that's what this horrifying looking automation clip is. Okay, and on to the drop. The drop is, as you might guess from hearing it, pretty simple as far as the composition goes, but there's a few neat little things going on in here. So first of all, the vocal.
I lost when I found ya.
It's loud, it's mean, it's
I
aggressive.
lost when I found ya. Dug my own grave in the ground, yeah. Now I paint
There's a lot
your
of stuff
face
going
in
on
the
here.
sound.
But the main thing is Little Altar Boy, because
I lost when I found ya. Dug my own grave in the ground, yeah. Now I paint your face in the sound, dude. I just can't keep.
Little Altar Boy is probably one of my favorite plugins ever just because of this drive knob. It sounds so good. It just adds so much meat to a vocal without making it hard to make out,
I lost when I found ya. Dug my own grave in the ground, yeah. Now I paint your face in the sound, dude. I just can't get around to getting rid of you.
It sounds so cool. We've got some background vocals.
Found ya. Found ya. Ground ya. Sound, dude. I just can't get around to getting rid of you.
And this little thing, Gideon actually suggested this. There are a few things in this song that were his idea because I asked for feedback a few times towards the end of the process. But check this out. So there are these little bits, comes in, twice, but it's just like, sort of like what I have over here with the backup vocals going after the main vocal. He says ground, yeah, and then the background vocals just come in and just go ground, yeah.
My own grave in the ground, yeah. Now I paint.
That was the best I could make it work. I think it sounds pretty cool, but it had to be kind of far back in the mix, so it's not super apparent in the final thing, but.
Ground, yeah. Now I paint.
And then we've also got this little pluck sound, just. I don't really know what it is. It's from Sky Keys. Love this plugin. Such pretty sounds, but. And with like a ton of reverb on it. That just sort of adds like atmosphere, a little bit of high-end shimmer, But now, for the main attraction of the drum and bass song, the drums and the bass. So drums, pretty simple. We've got our kick, our snare, and then we got a little D&B shaker loop here. Some shakers. The hi-hat stem. And I think when you're making drum and bass, what's very important is these sort of extra layers that just add more rhythmic complexity to the breakbeat, because this on its own this is already pretty groovy, but then you add in these layers and it's just like, yeah. One of my favorite details about this, sort of got this idea from the song Don't Start Now by Dua Lipa. Real quick, that song is a masterpiece. It's so good. Ian Kirkpatrick, legendary producer, did that one. Really, really good stuff. But what happens in that song is that there's an open hat on the downbeat of the chorus. And so I sort of brought that in here, and we start with this short open hi-hat. And then there's also a longer one to just kind of ride out into. So that open hi-hat, the cut off one, comes back in every 4 bars, but we have this little drum fill to lead us into it. So we come in here. And then the sustained ride here actually comes in half a beat early, and that way the transient is not overlapped with the cut off hat. And also, during this little drum fill, there's this cool little bass sample. It didn't originally sound like that. This is the original sample. Pitched it down a whole bunch, lot of reverb, and it sounds so cool. That just comes in during the drum fill at the end of every 4-bar phrase. Just adds a little bit of movement to the track. And then, of course, the cream of the crop, the bass. So we've got a Reese from the beginning, but with the sub frequencies cut out. And that makes room for the sub bass. Which is just a sine with a lot of drive. And then there's a third layer, which is called acid bass. Looks like it's a flex preset, but this is sort of the main grit of the bass sound. And then you layer them all together, and that's what makes this big, nasty, dark, evil bass. And for the second half of this sort of beginning bit, the pad comes back. And another little atmosphere pluck. So this is now layered on top of that other one. So it's... What note is that? E and E. G, it's playing a different note. We're getting harmonies. Ooh. And then, of course, all together.
I lost when I found ya. Dug my own grave in the ground, yeah. Now I paint your face in the sound, dude. I just can't get around to getting rid of you. Get out, this the crowd, yeah. He thinks you're his, but he's got to dig your way into my wounds. I just can't get around to getting rid of you.
Then what happens in the second half, we've got two ARPs coming in. This layer, a sound from Sky Keys with basically no effects on it, just volume automation. It's such a good plugin, y'all. Sky Keys. And then this little ARP sound I made. So we go. And that comes in along with in the original song, these background vocals were played during the second verse, but now they're here and it sounds awesome. Also, the bass changes between the first and second half of the drop, because at first it was acid bass, then it's acid bass 2. It's a completely different preset. Just, I don't know, I guess I wanted to mix it up a little bit, but at the end they're both there, so. Yeah, this is such a neat little moment right here in the song.
I watched the sweatshirt sent off. Forgot you ever had it on.
It's just right here, everything cuts out. This bass, it's the bass stem. It's from the chorus of the original song. But I used just that one note with the open hat, a kick, and that's pretty much it. Then everything else just kind of fades back in. And also, reverb cut again, fades back in. So for the second verse, drums, we're going back in the drum and bass groove, but it's much weaker and more roomy than the drop. I just use a different drum sample, different snare sample.
I should delete your text, but I know that you want it gone.
Vocoder comes back for that
But I'm a mess
one
with
line.
precious stress soon as he came along. So leave me behind, mouth shut, eyes blind. I don't wanna hear it all.
The second build-up is pretty similar to the first. Only main difference is we got the ARP going for more atmosphere during this one, and then the drums, very, very different. So if I solo out the percussion here, there is a low pass going on here. It's all fading up. Now we've got this chopped up drum loop. And that's about the only difference between this build up and the first one. Toms are back. Can't hear them though. Oh, oh.
too much, but I
Boom.
know it's going down.
Boom.
I'd rather be blind than stare at your red warning lights with my feet off the ground. So leave me in the corner line.
And then the background vocals are here, which they were notably absent from the first build-up. Okay, so in this drop, it's sort of the same as the second half of the first drop. You know, we're not going to bring the energy back down. It's sort of going to stay where it was before. Slight, subtle, probably a noticeable difference is I have the scary vocal on the drop. So we've got, you know, our...
I lost when I found ya, dug my own grave in the ground, yeah.
We brought back the scary vocal from before, and it's here now.
I lost when I found ya, dug my own grave in the ground, yeah. Now I paint your face and the sound do. I just can't get around to getting rid of you.
It's a very subtle layer. You can barely hear it in the full mix because of the acid bass, but it's there. And this is all pretty much the same stuff as before, except it gets cut off early, and to sort of facilitate that transition, because we don't have the second half with the that's not here, because instead we go right into the rap breakdown and then the extended final drop. So to facilitate that transition, we've got this little piano coming in here. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's a violin going on this whole time. Well, it's not loading right now, but there's a violin here doing just sustained. Tad spooky. We've got this piano here. Ooh, spooky. This is from Vaults, by the way. It's got this really awesome, like, you hear that little reverse thing at the end. That's just built into the plugin. Really cool sound. And then it does this. And then we've got, you know, this thing from before, the... Except in the second phrase here, it sort of starts to go up, and that's again building just like the piano into the next section, so you'll hear. Yeah. Now, the rap breakdown.
Still his touch left its mark on my brittle skin, getting burned by the sparks. Say your open hands, little crushed in the dark. So have your little fun.
Really struggled with this section on how to incorporate this breakdown. Originally, it was twice as long. If you know the original song, you'll notice that I actually used only the second half of the little rap bridge. That was actually Gideon's idea, again, because it just felt, I think, like it just needed to get into the next drop faster because, you know, I didn't want to lose the energy for too long. So
Still his touch left
this
its mark
section,
on my brittle skin, getting burned by the sparks. Say your open hands.
and we've got some new elements here. A super saw. It's the most basic super saw of all time with an LFO. Just filtering in. And also, we're just holding the same note for this whole section. Just one chord. Same with the bass. Got a little pitch bend down here at the bottom. Yeah, that just helps to sort of build tension. Just holding that last note. And then the last drop, which is double long because it has the pre-chorus in the chorus. And it's got, you know, the crazy little altar boy drive on it. And it's just... I mean, this is basically just every element we've had so far in the track all together at the same time. Plus a few little extra details like this ARP. Which it does so much for that drop. And then, remember that piano thing from before? Well, we have that here, and it's awesome. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the last drop. Scary vocals still here. Vocoder. Background vocals. One thing to note is that for only this last drop, the bass line has a little octave jump at the end. And that's just every 4 bars. It does so much, actually. Especially right there. You feel it especially right here at the end during the drum fill and all the other transition stuff. The drum pattern is slightly different. There's just a few more snares in there. It's just a little more filly. Just... It's just like slightly more complex, but that's pretty much the rest of the drop, yeah. What is this? Oh yeah, okay. When we get into the second half, you've got just a little, like, just that moment of silence. You can see it cuts out everything, except there's a little 808 in here. It's so quiet. Yeah, it's like a little Easter egg there, I guess. And you can see just cutting out everything here adds so much tension to that moment that bringing it back in full force, just, it almost amps the energy to higher than it was before. Oh, this ending is so good. Okay. So, this piano. There's a piano here. I had the whole, chord progression written out of the piano, but I ended up only using it for this one single chord. And it just does so much. Just going from, the big, bombastic, nasty bass, super saw, big synth arps, to just this piano chord. It works. It brings down the energy instantly. And then we've got that little bass transition from before, just a little quieter. It works really, really well there, I think. But this ending, this outro is so cool. I'm so proud of it. So it's obviously Gideon.
I know it feels alone at night, and I know you come around, and I know I like...
And we've got these background vocals, which, like, shout out Gideon. This is so pretty. And you can see the reverb automates out. Everything gets drier and drier as it gets to the end. I mean, you can see there's not a lot going on in this section. So it's those vocals. And then this little orchestra. It's a cello, a viola, and a violin doing very simple stuff. But it sounds very pretty, I think. Together.
I know it feels alone at night, and I know you come around, and I know I like to think too much, but I know it's going down, and I'd rather be blind than stare into red warning lights with my feet off the ground. So leave me in the corner lost, and go home with what you found.
There it is. Getting Rid of You. ANZE remix. That's how I made it. Oh my gosh. How could I forget? Bonus little detail.
I know I like to think too much, but I...
Oh gosh. Okay, hold on. I need to reload this. Okay, I reloaded the project file. Hopefully my violins will work now. They will not. You know what? Okay.
Think too much about it at night, and I know you come around, and I know I like to think too much, but I know...
Oh my gosh, it's not there. Y'all, my violins are broken in the final render. They're not in the song. Okay, hold on. So, okay, I'm gonna show you an older render. They're supposed to be right here.
No, I like to think too much, but I
Hear it
know
right
it's
there. The
around. And I know I like to think too much, but I know what's going
They're not there.
to think too much, but I around. And I know I like to think too much, but I know what's
Dang, that's disappointing. Well, okay, I guess they're not in the song actually. Anyways, there it is.
can't get around to getting rid of, 'cause I know it feels a long night, and I know you come around, and I know I like to think too much, but I know it's going down, and I'd rather be blind than staring to red warning lights with my feet off the ground. So leave me in